Good evening, professionals. In our Corporate Law webinar series, we are in the 9th Domestic Corporate Law webinar series, and we have started discussing about the Labor Code, the new code with various enactments and also a comparative analysis with the erstwhile provisions under the labor legislations. During the past 4 weeks, we discussed about the first code being Industrial Relations Code. And from this week onwards, we are going to study the second code, which is the Code on Social Security. Thanks, Aishwarya, for this detailed presentation. These are various legends in today's presentation. And we will first see an overview of this code on Social Security, some of the relevant definitions in the light of various amendments made in the code and various terms which are introduced in the new code. And we will see what is Social Security Organization, a culmination of various boards, and what are the principal powers and functions enshrined to this SSO we are going to see. And in chapter 3, we are going to see about EPF. EPF, again friends, the registration number remains the same, 2010, and where 20 for specified notified establishments, and it may vary subject to the specified class of establishments as may be notified thereto. So the provisions remain the same, and the contribution also, that 12% for notified establishments and 10% for all other establishments remains the same. And with regard to ESI, chapter 4, we are going to see the utilization of fund as envisaged under section 26, and the rates are to be prescribed by the appropriate government. The framework is Lok Sabha passed this bill on 22nd September, and Rajya Sabha passed this bill on 23rd, and it received President's nod on 28th September. The preamble of this code clearly says that it is, as the name implies, with the goal of social security being extended to all employees and workers, whether they are in organized sector or unorganized sector or any other sector, and for matters which are connected therewith, and it extends to the whole of India. In previous Industrial Relations Code, we noticed that it was by virtue of repealing 13 statutes. Here, Code on Social Security, it is by way of repealing 9 statutes. Important statutes governing the labor provisions in India: the Employees Compensation Act 1923, EPF Act 1952, ESI Act 1948, Employees Exchange Act 1959, Maternity Benefit Act, Payment of Gratuity Act, Cine Workers Welfare Fund Act, the Building and Other Construction Workers Cess Act, and Unorganized Workers Social Security Act. So this is by virtue of repealing all these 9 statutes. This is a framework of the Act, and today we are going to see fundamental provisions or the key features in chapter 1 to 4. Registration and cancellation of registration. Establishments that are already registered under any central labor law, if they are registered under EPF or if they are registered under ESI, the question which is generally asked is, are they required to go for any fresh registration under the new code? The answer is no, because they are deemed to be registered under this code. With regard to all new businesses which are going to be set up after this 28 September 2020, then these establishments could apply for registration either electronically or otherwise, since electronic medium is now permitted under this labor code. And for those establishments where EPF applies under chapter 3 or ESI applies under chapter 4, and business activities, when they are going for winding up of their business, shutting down their activities, whether they can go for cancellation of registration, yes, they can make an application for striking off and cancellation of their registrations. Who is a contractor? Now we are going to see all the key terms as applied in this particular code. Contractor is a person who undertakes to produce a given result for the establishment. Thus, it excludes a person who merely supplies the goods or articles for an establishment, and a person who supplies contract labor for any work of the establishment as a human resource. For example, he is supplying the contract labor. For example, I am rendering the manpower services, say X Private Limited, and various payroll activities are outsourced to me by several establishments or organizations. Then I am rendering this outsourced employees as X Private Limited. These employees, though not in the roles of various other companies, but for processing the payroll, because payroll processing again being a voluminous activity, and if they have only one HR person or one finance person and they want to deploy or have this outsourced work done by this X Private Limited, then this particular person establishment is called the contractor. And if this contractor X is going to engage or assign this activity to a subsidiary of this X, say Y Private Limited, then they are called to be the subcontractors. What do you mean by contribution? Employer or employee making a contribution to Provident Fund is the central board, the board of trustees for Provident Fund, and employer and employee, the rates to be prescribed when they are making the contribution to the corporation, which is your employee state insurance corporation. It includes any amount payable by or on behalf of the employee. So not necessarily that the contribution is restricted to employer. If it is going to be an employee contribution also, it is certainly well within the ambit of the definition contribution. What is an establishment? A place where the business is carried on. It also includes a factory or a mine. Gig worker is a new concept introduced in this code on social security. Ideally, a gig worker is a person who does freelancing, which means they are not in the contractual relationship with the establishment. Thereby, it implies that there is no employer-employee relationship between the parties. It is a short-term arrangement and it is outside the purview of your traditional employer-employee relationship. As the definition goes, it is a person who performs work or participates in the work arrangement and earns from such activities outside the traditional employer-employee relationship. The next new concept which is introduced in this code is a platform worker. Friends, ILO, the International Labour Organization, has recognized that the platform work is the mantra now for over a decade. Since we have several online platforms to access the organizations, the cloud mode, and various software methodologies being applied. So this platform work is now the new area which is recognized by ILO as well. And also it thus provides for the new model to be an entrant, and there is the old traditional model of the employer-employee relationship, which is generally the business model which prevails in an organization, which is fading away, but this platform work is now being well recognized. And hence, the code provides necessary statutory protection and recognizes such kind of concepts, gig worker, platform worker as well. Thus, it means a work arrangement outside the traditional employer-employer relationship, in which organizations or individuals use the online platform to use the work related to an establishment, or individuals to solve problems or to provide specific services, which or such other activities which may be notified by central government. Of course, it is for a consideration of services being rendered by these platform workers. So the person who engages in such platform work is called a platform worker. Social security means protection which is given to an employee, which could also include the gig workers, platform workers, and organized workers. More importantly, with regard to their wages or their retirement benefits, be it their gratuity, pension, or their retrenchment, compensation benefits, as the case may be, under this code. Unorganized worker means a home-based worker, people who are engaged in our domestic activities and our household activities on a daily basis, or self-employed workers, or a wage worker who is employed in an unorganized sector. And it also includes those workers who are in organized sector, but they are not covered under your erstwhile provisions of ID Act or under this code from chapter 3 to 7. We move on to SSO, the Social Security Organizations concept, friends. The functions and procedure of SSO. As mentioned just now, Central Board is the Board of Trustees of your EPF, and the function of this board is for administering the fund. And the authority for this purpose is your central government. ESI is referred as corporation in the code, and the standing committee's role will be to administer the affairs of this ESI corporation and to submit the cases and for referral of the disputes as may be related to the corporation. Central government is again the authority for ESI corporation. And medical benefit committee, here the function is to assist this corporation, the ESI corporation, and the authority is empowered to central government. The National Social Security Board, which is the appropriate government being central government, the name of the state, followed by the Unorganized Worker Social Security Board for the state government. And the function of this particular NSSB is to frame suitable scheme and monitor the welfare schemes for primarily 3 categories: unorganized worker, gig worker, and platform worker. And the member of the board, adequate representation shall be given to persons belonging to SC, ST, minorities, and women. And the name of the state, followed by the Building and Other Construction Welfare Board. As the name goes, it is for the construction workers, like how you had the NSSB for your unorganized sector. The member of the board shall comprise such constitution as prescribed in the code, with at least 1 member who shall be a woman. And the functions of this board shall be to provide death and disability benefits, pay pension, all the retirement benefits, the group insurance scheme, meet medical expenses, pay maternity benefits, provide transit accommodation hostel facility, frame skill development and awareness scheme, and such other welfare measures as prescribed by central government. And all these 5 SSOs collectively are referred as organization for the purpose of this code, which means your board, the board of trustees of your EPF, the corporation, which is your ESI corporation, your MBC, Medical Benefit Committee, your NSSB, and your workers, construction workers welfare board, all put together will comprise your organization. Disqualification. So for members of SSO, the disqualification is clearly stated under the code. Like any other act, it says that if you are like if you are an insolvent, undischarged insolvent, or unsound mind, or committed to an offense involving moral turpitude, or an employee of an establishment but you have failed to pay any of the dues, statutory dues, or you were a member or an employee of an establishment and you have been a part of the member of the MP, the parliament, or this appropriate government's the designation as specifically mentioned in the code. So for all these criteria, if you are going to fall, then you will be disqualified to become a member of SSO. The procedure is organization, all these 5 put together shall meet at such intervals to see how they are performing their functions as prescribed and to report to the appropriate board. The supersession of organization will happen when these organizations are unable to perform their functions or they are continuously delaying in effectively discharging their functions. Then appropriate government may, after giving an opportunity of being heard, supersede and take appropriate action thereon. So there, the authority of supersession of organization plays a pivotal role. And additionally, central government may, by notification, constitute state boards for state after consultation with the state governments respectively for performing such other function as may be assigned to it by central government from time to time. We move on to chapter 3, which is your Employees Provident Fund, another important labor legislation. EPFO means an organization consisting of officers and employees of the state central board. And the concept of deemed wages, where the wages, we all know that it means the remuneration in whatever form capable of being received by the employee. It also includes your basic, dearness allowance, retaining allowance. The definition also excludes certain categories like your house rent allowance, your compensation allowance, your retirement benefits like your pension, gratuity, the bonus that you receive as an employee, or any other compensation or benefits, or any other house rental accommodation, or if there is any expenditure to meet that expenditure, if that is being reimbursed as a special expenditure for having performed your duties. So all these are clearly excluded from the definition of wages. There is also a concept called deemed wages by virtue of an explanation in the definition section, which says that where an employee is given remuneration in kind in lieu of whole or part of the wages which is attributable to him, the value which does not exceed a cap as prescribed in the explanation to the definition section, which is 15% of the total wages, shall be deemed to be wages for the purpose of this code. Provident Fund Scheme, the contribution by employer 10% of wages. As I mentioned before, 12% for notified establishments, and of course it may vary to specified class of establishments as may be notified by the appropriate government. The contribution by employee, equal contribution as made by the employer, or voluntarily if the employee wants to make any additional contribution, he may do so. Pension scheme, it is contribution by the employer not exceeding 1/3% of wages or such percentage of wages as may be notified by central government. With regard to insurance scheme, contribution by employer not more than 1% of wages or such percent of wages as may be notified by central government. We have to see what is to be notified by central government, and for meeting all the expenses for your administration of the insurance scheme not exceeding 1/4 of the contribution made. Recovery of amount from contractor. The equivalent amount of contribution, be it your 10 or 12% or 1/3% or 1% for the insurance scheme, will be the amount as applicable to your contractor or the contractual relationship between the contractor and your establishment as well. But where an amount is contributed by employer-employee towards any scheme for an employee who is employed through a contractor, the contribution may be recovered by such employer from the contractor. In turn, the contractor may also recover the funds from the employee. However, he shall not deduct this particular sum from the wages payable to the employee. So that should be a gross sum, but this amount could be recovered from the employee because this amount was recovered by the employer from the contractor, and hence the spillover effect will come for adjustment between the contractor and the employee. However, he shall not be deducting it from the wages. Chapter 4 is your Employee State Insurance Corporation. ESI fund shall be administered by the corporation, ESI corporation, and all contributions and charges paid under this chapter and all other monies paid on behalf of the corporation or received on behalf of the corporation shall be paid into the fund, which is the corpus, and corporation may also accept additional grants, donations, CSR fund and gift from appropriate governments or local authority, whether incorporated or not. The utilization of fund is as set out in section 26, and where it clearly says that the fund can be utilized only for the following purposes: payment of benefit and provision of medical treatment and attendance to insured persons, payment of fees to members of the corporation standing committee, medical benefit committee or the other committees, and payment of salaries and other allowances which are to be paid to the staff of the corporation, and the payment of contribution to the state government, local authority, or any other private body, and attendance towards the cost of medical treatment of the insured person. Insured person is as referred to in section 28. And with regard to establishment and maintenance of hospitals, dispensaries, and other institutions which provide such services, the medical services and other ancillary services to the for the benefit of the insured person, referred to again in section 28. With regard to audit of accounts, whatever cost was incurred to meet the reimbursement of those expenditures. Similarly, for administration and setting up of the insurance codes under this chapter 4, and payment of any sum under any contract entered for the purpose of this code by corporation or the standing committee. The standing committee, as referred in our definition section, or by any officer who is duly empowered by the corporation or the standing committee authorized in this behalf. And with regard to settlement for any award or decree of the court, the payment of any sum which is paid against this particular corporation, since it is related to the ESI corporation, this shall also be utilized out of the corpus of this fund. And with regard to again any civil or criminal proceedings, if there is going to be any cost incurred under this code and relating to this chapter 4, then the same shall be utilized out of this fund. And with regard to defraying any other expenditure within the limits prescribed by central government, after consultation with your employee state insurance corporation, and which is attributable to the welfare measures related to your insured person as referred to in section 28. And for such other purposes, this particular fund amount could be utilized with the prior approval, however, of the central government. Friends, we will continue from chapter 5 in our next webinar. Thank you very much. Take care. Stay safe.